What is up, Bengals fans? It is draft week, and I can't believe it's already here. I'm Anthony Kazenta, John Sheeran. We've got a special guest. We'll intro him in just a second. John, how you doing, bud? Busy week, but a fun one ahead. How you doing?
Yeah, busy and fun as well. I just actually got off the phone with my mom, and she wanted everyone to know that she has declared for Team Chase. I'm not making that up. Yeah,
Okay.
Apparently she was in physical therapy for Parkinson's today, and they were talking about like Joe Burrow's scar and stuff like that. And she was hearing a bunch of BS, like, well, they'll just need to take an offensive lineman. They need to take a receiver too. And I'm like, you know what? It sounds like you're on the Team Chase train. Like, you know what? I think I am. So everyone out there, Mrs. Sheeran's Team Chase.
Then
so take that for what it is.
If she's Team Chase, I think we can all be Team Chase. And I know it's been debated, but the legend in between John and I here, the guy who is responsible for this lovely merch that we are rocking, and Randall's rocking back behind John, Joe Goodberry. It has been far too long since you have been on this show, my friend. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. If you hear my kids in the background, there a fight just erupted in the back, and you know how that is, Anthony. Maybe not John yet, in a few more years, but I'm doing great. Other than that, everything else is going smoothly.
Good. Put them in the octagon. See who is victorious, right? Well, it's awesome to speak with you. Like I said, it's been far too long. Obviously, we converse and whatnot on Twitter, but you are the go-to guy, especially this time of year because of the draft, the Bengals, what they're going to do, and we've got a lot of questions for you. Happy to have you back on. Because you are the architect of this awesome logo, these hats, the rad sweater you were wearing, I guess I would be remiss if I did not ask you, just before we get into all the draft stuff, about the uniforms. John was present for a very cool event with the team when they did that, but your overall opinions about what they unveiled, the combinations, all of that good stuff. Want to get your take on that.
Yeah, I'm very jealous of John, first and foremost.
So am I.
I know, right? That looked like a great time. So other than that, I kind of felt bad afterwards. It's funny because it happened, and then I read the Athletic story about the Bengals that took part in the organizing and in the design and the decision making, and how they kind of felt bad that they leaked, and then I felt bad at how I perpetuated the legitimacy of the leaks because I knew they were real as soon as they happened. I mean, it was obvious, but I was like, yeah, those are them, because I had good sources. I had good descriptions the whole way. And then I saw them. So I was partial, I guess, because I knew what they looked like. I thought they looked good. So it wasn't a surprise to me. It was more like, yeah, and they look great on players. This is what I expect. I'm happy with a simple look. I think they did the right thing overall. I'm glad the color rush just basically became the away jersey. I thought that was maybe the best thing about all of that. I'm not sure how the pants are going to go. I think that maybe if there was one misstep, I think some of the colors look weird when they get comboed up. And maybe they won't do that all the time, but overall, I think they look cleaner, they look better, they look smoother.
You got a combo you like?
Sorry, yeah, the all whites. I think the all whites look great.
Okay.
Well, when I was there in Paul Brown, I think I told Joe this, because we had our phones locked away and we signed non-disclosure agreements that lasted 15 hours because it was the night before they were going to reveal them. And I got my phone out, and then Joe DMs me. So what, did you see him? And then immediately I'm like Emily Parker is the director of communications. Like, Emily, Joe's trying to fish for more info, man.
Threw him under the bus. I love it. Well, where we want to start, Joe, with the draft. I mean, I don't know. I guess let's start here.
Okay.
There seems to be a big dividing line with Team Sewell and Team Chase in terms of what the Bengals should do at number 5. Obviously, there are other options. Kyle Pitts lingering out there in the background. And, of course, a trade back type of situation. I've seen you kind of argue primarily Team Chase, it would seem, on your Twitter account, but you've also have some glowing reviews of Sewell. I guess let's just kind of start there and your take on number 5, those two guys, and or what the Bengals should be doing in your estimation.
Yeah, I'm kind of on team they can't do wrong. I think if they ended up with either one of those 3, I would be ecstatic, and I can see why you would make that pick from any team's perspective. So, I think I don't really get into, or I don't really think I'm Team Chase more than Team Sewell. I don't think I'm less team Pitts than I probably have heard that they're not going to draft him, and I believe that. And so I kind of like, we haven't talked about it because of that situation as much as we probably should for the quality of player he is. But I think it's harder to find a Penei Sewell if he reaches his peak than it is to find a Jamar Chase if he reaches his peak. But I think when I watch prospects, I think both are worthy of a top 5 pick. We don't have the data set you get with wide receivers when you're talking about offensive line, because there isn't a production score, right? There's not, he had this many yards at this age, yada, yada. It's, did he play well at 18, 19? Yeah, I guess he did, but he had some issues, but he did play well. I'm talking about Penei Sewell. The thing with Chase is he feels like a safer prospect because I can put up his production with other guys that did that at 19 and say, that's what a number 1 receiver looks like. So, yeah, they both tested well on tape. They both look good. They both get the passing colors there. It's just the production factor with Chase that I think he's a pretty safe prospect. I think the bust factor for him is pretty low, and he's got high upside. So I understand why you would take that in a loaded offensive line class and say, come back in round 2, and whoever's there, we need a right guard more than anything right now to start. You can find that in round 2. In fact, that's where you find them. You find good offensive tackles in round 1, more than likely. You find good interior offensive linemen on day 2. And I think if that's the route they go, sounds like a plan to me.
It's just been funny to see this whole thing just encapsulate everybody for what seems like months now. And it's funny when people talk to you about it, they're like, oh, you keep flip-flopping back and forth because you're just going through the analysis of what it is. But like I was talking to Anthony about this earlier, like it didn't start with Sewell versus Chase, right? It almost started like Sewell versus Slater because we thought that they were going to take an offensive lineman. And then Chase entered the conversation with how the offseason kind of evolved. And now, like, I never expected to like be on one side or the other because they're obviously just both great and they can't really go wrong. But just the way that the discourse has evolved to a point where it's like, if they don't take Sewell, Burrow's knee is going to stay hurt and stuff like that. And it's almost like that in itself is creating more. It created more of the actual divide, and it's almost like that's why I'm on, I guess, Team Chase if I had to pick a side, because It's almost like you just don't want to associate with that type of reasoning.
It's like a Rorschach test, right? Of which team are you on says a lot about how you view football, how you view the draft, how you view the Bengals' ability to draft. I think it says a lot of things. And I some of the rhetoric that comes with Team Sewell is strange to me. Like, I can't find a good right guard in round 2. Why can't I? Well, because the Bengals haven't drafted well. Yeah, and they'll say, Billy Price or whatever, and look, they drafted Billy Price last time. Yeah, but they wanted Frank Ragnow, who's now a top 5 center. So was their evaluation wrong? No, they got unlucky. Sometimes that happens. And that could happen again. They could get their hearts broken again in round 2. Yes, it could happen. But I think they should and probably will take multiple swings on the offensive line. If you take Jamar Chase, it doesn't mean you don't care about the offensive line. It doesn't mean you're not going to address offensive line. It doesn't mean you won't fix it and won't find guys. I think pick 38 is earmarked for O-line unless someone drops and they can't deny it. I wouldn't be surprised if they came back in 69 or 111, whatever it is in the 4th round, and go O-line with one of those 2 picks. They've got a lot of needs. They need defensive ends. They need defensive tackles. They could bypass O-line again in one of those areas, but I think they're going to make it a priority. I think they're closer on offense once you add a Jamar Chase and a 2nd-round offensive lineman that's presumably starts at right guard. Let's look at that lineup. Let's look. The depth chart now on offense looks pretty good. If you mix anything else or if you start at Penei Sewell and then try to get wide receiver in round 2, because I think the hard part for a lot of people is coming to the idea and the grips that wide receiver was legitimately a need and is a need. We've talked, and everyone uses the targets to AJ Green. Even if you wanted to give a little bit of that to T. Higgins or Tyler Boyd, right? You're still talking 80 targets or so. They are a 3 wide receiver team. It is a starter. And it could make those other guys better if you get the right guy in there. So I don't think they want to mess around with that. I think they want to fill it as fast as possible and then come back and get the right guard. And if anybody can't get on board with that, I just wonder where you're at.
What I can't get on board with, I guess, is the fact that seemingly Kyle Pitts is not really in the conversation for this team at number 5. I can understand if it's, your traditional inline tight end and, you're looking at the Bengals, obviously they have offensive line need, edge need, wide receiver need, like he's mentioned. But, based on the tea leaves and, Malik Wright, who's become a trusted source, and others on the Bengals beat that have kind of said, look, he's just not really so much in the conversation at number 5. I sit here and I go, why not? And I don't know how you feel about that. You obviously you think he's an outstanding prospect, but I mean, are you maybe bummed? Are you surprised? Are you not surprised about the fact that he is not seemingly in the conversation for the Bengals at number 5? Because I think that would be a really fun toy for this offense to have. I don't really call him tight end, flex, weapon, whatever you want to call him, because he's I mean, it's just not that pigeonholes him too much in my opinion. So I kind of have this dream that he would be more in the conversation with them at number 5, but doesn't seem to be.
No, I hear you. And it's funny. You go back to January and I'm like, man, whoever gets Kyle Pitts is getting a freak that changes your offense. And because we're thinking he goes around 8 to 15 in that range. And he just kept getting pushed up to the point where he may be the first non-quarterback taken. That's a possibility. And he's worthy of that. If you view him as an ultimate chess piece on offense, which you should. I think most teams should. And how can you not when you watch this film? He's a freak. He's young, just like these other 2 guys. I think if you're scared off of Pitts, it's probably because you're saying he's a tight end. If we have to move him to like an X wide receiver, is he better than Chase as an X wide receiver? No, he's probably not. Now, obviously, he's more dynamic because you can do more things in terms of putting him at actual tight end and doing things from the slot that you can't do with Chase. You get the size. But is that too similar to a T. Higgins, maybe? Is that too similar to what you use Tyler Boyd for over the middle? I think he would flourish with Joe Burrow, to be honest. Pitts would be that guy, the intermediate range, the way Burrow was as accurate as he was last year, it'd be a great fit. But they probably still need a deep threat somewhere on the outside. So I don't think it fills a need. I think it just makes you more dynamic, makes you more multiple in a lot of ways, makes you more dangerous. I'd still want them to have a tight end like that. I think if you take him and you're paying him as the number 5 pick, he's immediately one of the higher paid tight ends in the league. That position tends to get injured a little bit more often. The learning curve tends to be a little bit steeper and take a little bit longer for those guys. But I think you could do more with him right away early. So I don't even know if I buy that. I just think that would probably be the argument and why they moved away from it.
And I think if he does get taken by Atlanta, like people won't feel like great, but they'll feel like kind of relieved that the Bengals won't be able to get the pass on him for Jamar Chase if people are just kind of on the fence with that. But I guess let's just play more or less, not doomsday, but like let's play the unlikely scenario because there were reports of the Lions trading up with the Falcons to take Jamar Chase. That's probably not going to happen for obvious reasons, but let's just say that it does, right? Chase goes before the Bengals. You made an interesting, you had an interesting take, I think, a tweet that said that for the Bengals board, they would probably more likely trade back down a couple spots than just stay there and take Sewell. So for people who are very much on Sewell, what is the reasoning behind that, I guess?
That was from a source and me putting 2 and 2 together. So as that tends to be how I operate mostly, actually. I can read between the lines pretty well. I can do my own evaluation, but it always helps when someone gives you a little bit of a nudge in one direction. And in this case, it was if Chase is gone, Chase is the pick. I don't know if we've made that clear enough at this point. Chase is the pick if he's there. If he's not there, that means a quarterback did not go number 4. Now, I think the scenario I'm looking at here is that Mac Jones goes number 3. And in that scenario, Mac Jones goes 3. And let's say Atlanta moves up, Atlanta moves back, Lions move up. And let's play in that sandbox. And Chase goes number 4. That means only 3 quarterbacks have gone, and someone is calling you for Fields or Lance because I don't think anyone's calling for Mac Jones. It just feels like there's no other connection with anyone other than the 49ers. So who's calling to get him? Maybe other teams like him, but you don't read that too much. So is it now the Panthers or the Broncos or the Patriots or whoever it may be calling about trying to get up and get Lance or Fields? And I think when we listened to Duke Tobin talk the first time, it was, we don't want to move back and miss out on our tier of players. And I'm like, that makes sense. And I'm thinking, what is that? Chase, Pitts, and Sewell? Okay, that makes sense to me. That would be the 3 elite guys. And then you hear him the next time. He's like, we've had conversations. We don't want to miss out on our tier of players. And I'm thinking, okay, so if they're that clear on Jamar Chase being the pick at 5, maybe he's in the tier of his own. Maybe to him, and like, we don't need to have information that they like Jamar Chase. We know based on who they like at receiver and how they evaluate and what they like to draft. They love Jamar Chase. No doubt in my mind, they think he's worthy of that pick. Maybe he's in a tier of his own. So maybe that what he's saying is we won't trade back and miss Jamar Chase, but we would trade back and then get into the next bucket of guys That includes Sewell, Slater, maybe even then that's Pitts, but maybe there's other guys in there. Maybe it's the corners that are right after that. So I'm wondering if that's what he was saying there. We assumed it was Pitts and Sewell with Chase, but then I started thinking maybe it's not. Maybe it's Chase, and then it's the next group.
Talking with Joe Goodberry, Bengals favorite, Twitter favorite, NFL draft expert. Happy to have him on the program. It has been quite a while since he's been on the show, and we are ecstatic to have him back. Joe, before we kind of talk a little bit more draft, I'm gonna let you plug these awesome hats because a lot of people are getting them. A lot of people are asking about where they can get that kind of stuff. Is there a website or something you've got where people can buy these things?
Yeah, they'll be up the second week of May because I've got things going on until then. It takes some work to get them packaged up and shipped all out. So I will have them on Twitter. I will tell you exactly when they're going for sale because they typically go pretty fast. So if you are worried about that or why other people have them, you see them behind John and Anthony's wearing his. Thank you very much on that. I sent those to those guys to drum up interest for the people to get excited
we're
about
just
it.
pawns. We're just free advertising.
That's it. That's all that was. So in the second week of May, be on the lookout for the link for that.
Joe's building the Bengal brain army. I love it. Look, you kind of talked about a trade back scenario a little bit. Is there a specific for you? Is there a specific instance, whether it's in round one, maybe at the top of round two, where you say, right here is where it makes a lot of sense? I know with round one, if you're moving out of 5, you're getting more draft capital for that pick than you are obviously at the top of round 2. But round 2, maybe you get a little bit more room to play with in some of the deeper areas of the draft, offensive line, that sort of thing. I mean, where do you think it makes most sense here? Obviously, it's probably dependent upon who goes and whatnot. But is there a scenario we go, wow, that one actually would really, if I'm in the Bengals GM chair, that one would really interest me.
Yeah, and I think recently they have a penchant in the second round to trade back a little bit, right? Jesse Bates year, the Drew Sample year, that didn't work out as well as they probably had hoped. It seems like they're, you don't want to drop back out of a tier and miss your guys. I think they may have in that class. But point is, here's the scenario in round 2, right? Someone falls to them and they want to address offensive line, and it's not an offensive lineman that drops. Maybe it's an edge rusher. Maybe it's a corner, whatever the case may be. You throw a position out there, and they're like, teams are calling because they want that Azeez Ojulari, right? And he's still there all of a sudden, and they're like, well, we'll come up and give you a 3rd or a 4th round, whatever it may be. That's when you trade back 10, 15 spots, and you let the board fall to you as for an offensive lineman. Because I think there's a lot of guys that are going to be mid-second to 3rd round. Maybe they won't be there at 69, but they're probably, too early to take at 38, whether it's like a Ben Cleveland and Milton Williams. You see 2 guys that always mock to the Bengals. I think that is in their range in there where you're probably lucky if they're still there at 69. There's a ton of offensive linemen, though. So I think you can get into that. Maybe Leatherwood and Cosme are already gone, right, at 38. And you're sitting there like, well, Jackson Carman could be the next guy. Wyatt Davis could be the next guy. There's a lot in that next tier, I think, of guys that could go in the 1st round. Okay, they're gone. Here's 2nd round concrete guys, and I think there could be like 8 of them if you look at tackles and guard. And at that point, if someone wants to give you an extra 4th round pick, they could use it, and that's when you would trade back.
Right. So, yeah, I mean, they had calls last year to trade back in the 2nd round, but they saw T. Higgins there. They had a 1st round grade on him. I mean, you're not going to pass that up if you're in their shoes. And it could be a very similar situation this year because you're picking, the 6th spot in the 2nd round. There's still likely to be a guy that drops out of the 1st round who's there, and he may not be an offensive lineman. So in my mind, I'm thinking it's either that or they're just going to take the best offensive lineman available. And if there's not an offensive lineman that they like there, then they're going to field those offers. So I guess we can talk more about that 2nd tier offensive lineman group. Dave Lapham was on the Bengals Booth podcast, like he always does right before the draft. And he name dropped a few names for offensive linemen, not really names that are associated a lot with the Bengals in terms of mock drafts, which is kind of how it is, right? There's always some surprises. This team almost took Logan Wilson in the 2nd round last year. So they don't always go with the consensus of what the fans like. So when you hear the names Walker Little, Liam Eichenberg, Dylan Redunz, Aaron Banks, and Landon Dickerson, which guys in those groups would you be comfortable taking with 38, or would you rather leave and wait until they're there in 69?
If everyone had a clean bill of health, it'd be Landon Dickerson. I think he is tremendous on tape. I think he could play center or guard at a high level, and I would love if they were able to pick him and slide him instantly in at guard or center. I don't really care where you put him. Put him at guard if you want as a rookie year, and eventually he takes over at center. But recent reports are that it's not very good for him. And I think we've seen these guys before. That's how you get a Carl Lawson in round 4 is the medicals don't look great, right? So you probably can't touch him at 38. But for me, the next group, I like Eichenberg. I know he's got some issues in terms of sometimes I think he gets a little too grabby and could be a penalty kind of guy, but I think you kick him inside and that may not be as much of an issue because I think sometimes length is an issue for him at tackle. Maybe I personally, any of these guys that I think can eventually kick to tackle, I'm more interested in. I think the NFL will probably be more than a Wyatt Davis or a guy that's just a straight up guard, Ben Cleveland, Kendrick Green, Trey Smith. The guy I think with the most upside, and maybe he goes closer to like 69, is Quinn Miners. And I know you get those D3 guys, and they probably go a full round later than they should. But he dominated his competition. He tested like a freak athlete, went to the Senior Bowl, and showed out against guys that are obviously much better pedigree than he is. He's going to be a good starting interior offensive lineman, and he's got Pro Bowl type potential, if not all pro. And I just think maybe you don't get him at 38. Maybe that's too early, but maybe at 50, maybe at 69. And so I don't know what to do with Walker Little either, though. Like, what am I supposed to go watch high school tape on him?
Exactly. Yeah.
Can the Bengals risk any injury type guy? And people ask, should they take Caleb Farley if he's still there in 38? Can they risk that? They kind of need to hit on these guys, and these guys need to play as rookies. They've gone too many years without getting any production out of the rookie classes. At least, these guys are ending up injured more times than not. I don't think they can mess around with those type of guys that have question marks.
Joe, let's talk a little since you talked about Walker a little bit, but let's talk other side of the ball, defensive interior. I know there's one guy specifically that's been kind of creating a lot of buzz because of his workouts and the numbers that he put up. Milton Williams is an interesting guy. There are a couple of others as well. I know we've previewed Jay Tufele of USC, another defensive lineman that can kind of move around a little bit. I don't know. What are you thinking about that group? I know there's kind of some talent. It's kind of an inconsistent position group in this draft class, it would seem. There's some talented guys, and then it's not overly deep. I don't know what guys intrigue you as maybe best fits for what the Bengals are trying to do under Lou Anarumo. It's obvious that they're trying to get interior pressure based on all of the free agency guys they pursued this offseason. So I mean, I don't know. What are you thinking fit wise of some of those defensive interior guys?
Yeah, I can't keep mentioning Milton Williams every time because I would love if they drafted him, but I feel like it seems like 20 fan bases are all like, give me Milton Williams. And so the chances you're not getting him. But so what are the backup options? I think Davion Nixon from Iowa, if he's a late second, third round kind of guy, has a lot of upside as an interior pass rusher. I like Bobby Brown out of Texas A&M. I like Jonathan Marshall out of Arkansas, who may be more of like a fifth rounder. But that's kind of where I want to take one if they go and attack offense heavy. Alan McNeil, NC State. That makes a lot of sense to me too. I think they need a 3-tech. You sign a Larry Ogunjobi on a 1-year deal. He's more been like a flash type guy his whole career in Cleveland. There's times I thought he's going to take the next step and be a contributing player, an impact player. He never did that. I don't know that they're expecting him to with a 1-year deal. I think 3-tech is a big need for them. If we kind of how we see how they instantly replace their franchise greats with Jamar Chase to AJ Green here, I wouldn't be surprised if they jumped on a Milton Williams as early as possible to replace Geno Atkins. But I think the one guy that's here I am saying they shouldn't take any type of injury risk, but Dayo Adeyingbo out of Vanderbilt is an edge interior kind of guy. He looks like Carlos Dunlap at times, 35-inch wingspan, but he kicks inside and just beats up on centers and guards. He got injured right before the Senior Bowl or at the Senior Bowl, whatever. He's not going to be ready. It doesn't seem like it in time, but I'm talking if he's there in the 4th, that makes a lot of sense. Is that a 3rd-round pick? Maybe. I just think the D-tackle class is a tough one, and I think a few of these guys can get pushed up maybe a half a round before they should go because there's probably only about 5 guys with high-end potential. There's a bunch of guys that are decent, look like they'll be able to play for a long time and make an impact, but is that what you want? I think the Bengals, when you look at their draft classes of recent, and what's the difference between those draft classes that built the 11 through 15 teams is they're getting nothing on day 3. You can't keep taking these guys that are just going to have okay potential or special teams type role. some of these guys got to develop into impact players. Can't just be Auden Tate and Darius Phillips helping you. That's not enough. That's not Geno Atkins and Clint Bowling and Marvin Jones and George Iloka. And go on. There's more. I mean, a lot of their team is built on day 3, and they have nothing to show for it right now.
Odiangbo is also mentioned, I think, by Lapham as well. And I forgot that it was actually a torn Achilles. So like he's probably not going to play like that much or even at all this year. But it's interesting, like the defensive line conversation. If they don't end up with one by like say like round 3, right? Mm-hmm. You'd think that that's like their top need entering day 3, but even still then, like it's not a deep edge class, and it's definitely not a deep defensive tackle class. And you almost think like, did they just punt on these position groups because they spend in free agency and they could still, I guess, theoretically bring back a Geno Atkins? But you're right, you can't just like be taking these positions because you need to fill out the rest of the roster if these guys are not quality players and there's still depth at those other positions. Yeah,
there's a good chance this D-line is bad going into next year. I mean, I think they have 600 snaps at defensive end they haven't replaced. You got to remember where we were this time last year. We thought we had Carlos Dunlap, Carl Lawson, Sam Hubbard, right? And those guys were all going to play. In their nickel package, 3 defensive ends play next to Geno Atkins. You can wipe that slate clean. You got Sam Hubbard, and you replace, even if Carl Lawson's a 1-for-1 with Trey Hendrickson, if you're being an optimist, that's fine. You have to replace Carlos Dunlap and his production. That has not been replaced yet. We're talking, even if you want to give that to a guy who's the 3rd guy and Hubbard is more of a starter, 600 snaps are out there. And I don't see how they replace that with a guy, even if it's 3rd round. You're expecting a 3rd round rookie defensive end to come in and give you that quality minutes. It doesn't happen very often. Those Carl Lawson guys are very rare outside of the top 50 picks or so. I think it's going to be hard to fill that. I can see us coming out of this draft and saying they need to go sign a defensive end. They need somebody that can play minutes for them.
Ryan Garrett.
Talking with Joe Goodberry, talking some NFL draft on draft eve. We're going to be talking a little bit more about what's coming up over the weekend for the Cincinnati Bengals. We're going to do some specific prospect profiles, plural, maybe, I don't know, one. And then, of course, we're gonna do a mock draft, and I think Joe hopefully will stick around for that, and we'll kind of tag team that through the simulator. Joe, every year, people who pay attention to the draft kind of have their quote unquote their guys, right? A small group of players that maybe aren't the most well known or aren't talked about, beyond the first round, that sort of thing. But you're kind of like, I really like this guy. Whether you watched him last season or the past couple of seasons in college, you kind of caught up with their film, that sort of thing. Do you have a couple of guys maybe that aren't being talked about a lot, especially as fits for the Bengals, where you're like, I really like these guys?
I feel like sometimes I like guys and I talk about them too much, and then next thing I know, I see these fans are drafting them in their mock simulators and sending them to me like, do you like this one? I'm like, well, you just drafted all my favorite guys. Yeah, I like this. But I'd say one guy that I probably haven't talked about too much is Jalen Darden, wide receiver out of North Texas. I think his breakout age is 99 percentile. So this guy was dominating very early in his career. He looks like a slot jitterbug type of get him the ball in space, let him make his moves. And then they actually let him get a few deep, slot fades and things like that. And I'm like, oh, he tracks it very well. This guy looks elusive. He looks fast. He looks like somebody that can help in the return game also. You've got some snaps there that I think Alex Erickson leaving, we're just assuming maybe it's Darius Phillips in there. I do think they could probably find a punt returner to help this team out. And if they do double dip at receiver, assuming they take Chase, a 4th rounder, 5th rounder maybe for Darden makes a lot of sense to me, because I think he can help you and give you an element that's not currently on the team.
I'm going to put you on the spot because I can, and it's our show, but do you think that the running back or kicker, which position gets drafted first?
I'll say kicker, because I feel strongly that they're going to draft a kicker, whereas I assume they're going to draft a running back. I do think that'll happen. I do think the back end of the running back room needs to have more talent. We liked Travion Williams when he was drafted, and then it's 3 years later, and I don't even know what he looks like. So, I could see them drafting a running back, but I definitely think kicker, Evan McPherson, Florida, 6th round.
I want to talk about this guy. I guess this is kind of a little bit of a draft profile here, Joe. He's a guy I kind of teed up that I was going to maybe do last week. We didn't get around to it just because of time, but I saw recently that you had done a little thread on Twitter, at least a couple of things on him, and I'll pull that up. Amon-Ra St. Brown, the USC wide receiver, a guy, and I think this is a nice segue based on kind of what you're talking about there with the punt return aspect and or special teams ability along with, a wide receiver. I kind of see him as a guy that even if the Bengals take Chase at 5, I mean, they're going to need another wide receiver, I think, at some point in this class, whether it's day 3, maybe late night 2, what have you. But whether he's a supplemental guy that they add to the group, or maybe they hold off and they go heavy on offensive line, defensive line, and then he's there round 3, round 4, that sort of thing. I'm going to pull up your film on him, but I saw a lot of things that I liked about him. I don't see the breakaway speed. I don't see, the uber athletic kind of guy, but plays really strong for his size, makes a lot of the tough catches, does a lot of the dirty work, a lot of fade stuff, the occasional deep ball. I don't think he's a home run threat per se, but a guy I think could be very effective as maybe a little bit down the totem pole type of option in a receiving core. But I'd love to get your take on him, and if you think that he would work in this system with Joe Burrow and the Bengals.
Well, you definitely know him better than me. I will. You get all of that credit there. You are on these USC guys for sure. But I thought he looked like Tyler Boyd in a lot of ways. He's not out there winning with his size or his speed. He's not winning with his gifts. I think he is winning because he's a decent route runner, and I think he sets him up for his routes very well. I think he's got good hands, good concentration through contact, because he's going to have guys on him, and I think that showed at times. So I'm with you. I think he's a slot receiver. Does that mean he's the starting slot for a team? Yeah, if they have 2 good outside guys that I think, he's not a guy I want to give 100 targets to, but I guess.
Here you go, right here. This is yours. Yep.
This looks like Tyler Boyd to me, doesn't it? They're just running that out route there and then making that over the head catch like that and keeping his feet in bounds. Watch the little, yeah. So this is what he does. Yep. And I think if you have 2 good outside receivers, then you're fine with him as your slot guy. But what is that? This class is loaded with slot receivers. Does that push him down a round that he probably shouldn't fall to and then become a value in the 4th round? I think that's possible.
I think it's interesting, the conversation of receivers, because we talk about this offensive line class. It's deep, but it's not deep with prototype tackles. And then the receiver class is deep, but it's not deep with the receivers that the Bengals necessarily don't have. And there's been conversation about, the Bengals can just invest in 2 slot receivers and do more about what the Rams want to do. But I don't know what you think, but it's not just about like them potentially taking Chase and them already signing Thaddeus Moss. But it doesn't seem like the Bengals are on the Rams path. It seems like they're more doing what Burrow did at LSU. And I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing. It's just a different thing that people aren't really discussing about.
Yeah, I agree. I think we're going to see a marriage of the 2 systems is what it feels like, right? Like they will like to spread it out. They'll like to go empty. They'll like to go shotgun 5 wide, and 5 wide doesn't have to be 5 wide receivers. It just means you got 5 guys that aren't in the backfield. Yeah, that's a nice catch there. Amon-Ra St. Brown. Yeah. But I think we're still going to see, even last year with that system, they had 2 receivers in the slot, 50% of their passing offense. And how do you do that? By going 5 wide, by bunching up and stacking up 2 receivers, one with Tyler Boyd. And I think you could do that. If they ended up with an Elijah Moore, say they do trade back into the 15 range or something like that. I don't project it, but if it happened and they took Elijah Moore, I would understand it completely, even though he is projected to be a slot guy. I do think you can find ways to work on a second slot guy into this offense. I just don't know if that's makes them a better offense than just getting Chase and letting him, because he worked in the slot at LSU also. And just you saying, all right, we've got our X, we're going to move him around a little bit. And they started doing that more with T. Higgins down the stretch too. I was surprised by T. Higgins. I think that was one thing, listening to Brian Callahan also, his intelligence was something that I didn't expect. It's always one part that you don't know how to evaluate when you watch it on film. Is the team asking him to do more, or can he do more? And then you see the things. The Bengals have a lot of option routes. A lot of, if you see this, I want you to break off here in their playbook, and he's doing it. Things that I saw AJ Green messing up on. I'm like, T. Higgins just ran the right route that Green did earlier in the game. So I do think that they're going to be able to move these guys around more and more. That I don't think they want to take a guy that has to be in the slot. Right? Because then you have to create for that guy. Whereas Jamar Chase can run from the slot. That's part of the reason I think Chase is sometimes a little bit iffy on routes, is because he was at X, Z, and in the slot. And I think the routes are different every time you move into a different position and how defenses are going to play you. When you see him actually stick at one spot for a little bit, he starts to get a little crisper and crisper in his routes. So I think they would rather be more flexible. And I think that's why Chase is so appealing to them.
I think what they do at going back to pick number 5 and then what subsequently happens after that, because you're talking about T. Higgins here, I think it's going to show. I mean, for the last couple of seasons, they kept telling us we like the offensive line more than basically everyone outside looking in does, right? And of course, we all know how that has turned out over the past couple of seasons. I think if they do not, for some reason, go with Ja'Marr Chase, I think that is very unlikely at this point based on everything we've been hearing. But if they don't, that shows quite a bit of faith in Tyler Boyd, T. Higgins, and whatnot. How confident are you in this receiver core? I would assume they would probably still take a wide receiver round 2 or later. How confident are you as T. Higgins is the number 1 wide receiver, even if it's for a year, and that group still being very productive if they do go offensive line early instead of wide receiver?
I don't feel great about it at all. And I like both those guys. It's not a knock on them. I think for what they are, I really enjoy them. If you tell me my T. Higgins is my number 2, great, let's do it. I think he can be a Kenny Galladay type player. Is that a number 1 do-it-all kind of guy? I don't know. That's like fringe what I want in my number 1. And maybe T. Higgins is that fringe of what you want in your number 1, but who's the third guy? That third guy would still have to be someone that I think could provide yards after the catch. You can throw screens too, because they don't have that at all in their offense right now. Can he get deep? Can he threaten? Can he offer speed? And that's why they end up on Chase, because he can do all that stuff. And they don't even why even move off this, right? So if that in that scenario where they don't get Chase, someone moves up and something happens there that's weird, I think you have to address this wide receiver group, and you have to be very selective in who you're drafting, because people say, it's a deep wide receiver class, but not for what they need, because they have 2 good receivers. They need something very specific at that third position, because those 2 guys aren't very fast. They need something very specific there, because Boyd is best in the slot, and they want to keep Boyd in the slot because they recognize it. Even when they were out there, 2 wide receivers, very rare last year, but when they did, Boyd wasn't on the field. It was Higgins and Green. They know when Boyd's on the field, he's a slot receiver, and that's how they want to use him, and that's where he's at his best. And because of that even strengthens the need for that other receiver on the outside. And I think it's really why they want Ja'Marr Chase.
We've said it before, even the Chase rumors began. People are very easy to forget what this offense was when they had a true dominant do-it-all receiver. Like in the heydays of Green and Chad, it was so much easier. You can survive with Higgins and Tate and Boyd, but things just become a lot harder. And I think they just don't want to veer into that for the long term. They never have. Like you posted on Twitter a couple of days ago. Like they always are ready for the next receiver, and they're always ready to elevate the offense with the next generation. And it just kind of seems like what people are kind of missing. But Anthony, you got any more questions before we start this mock draft?
Yeah, we'll get to the mock in just a second. I guess I want to say this ask you this, because this is kind of where I think a lot of people's mindsets are, just kind of continuing the talk of pick 5, Ja'Marr Chase potentially being that pick. 10 years ago, the Bengals used a number 4 overall pick on A.J. Green. That seemed to be a can't miss. I know you were doing still a lot of your draft research and whatnot at that point in time too, Joe. He was, again, arguably the best player coming. It would seem one of, if not the very best player coming out of that draft, the safest pick in that class. You look at Chase, I mean, it's essentially the same pick. It's 1 pick later, 10 years later, different profile in terms of size and whatnot with A.J. Green. How close, how far away are they comparable in terms of your grades on them coming into this class? Because I think that's going to be something where a lot of Bengals fans are going to kind of go back in time and look at if this is the route they indeed go.
Very comparable from a surface level. I think seeing them as very safe, very high upside type prospects that are easily worth the top 5 pick, even for wide receivers. That's very similar. I think, my number grades are a little different from they were 10 years ago, but they would have been pretty close. I think Green was a little bit rarer because you're talking about a 6'4" guy that had odd flexibility and agility for that size. You don't find those guys too often. Whereas Ja'Marr Chase is a little bit more power, a little bit more angry when he plays. And I kind of welcome that right now after, AJ Green was great, but I kind of would like to add that element to AJ Green if I could have. Maybe the one thing he was lacking was that. And so different, but maybe Green was a little, if they were both in the same class, people would argue you got to take the 6'4" guy over the 6 foot guy, even though athletically, the way they both tested, you would say that Chase is the more athletic guy. I don't know that he is on tape. They're just different, and so I come away with it as Chase being that much younger, 2 years younger at this point than Green was when they were drafted him, that may be the difference. Maybe Chase at 23, 2 more years of development in the NFL, and may not be close. I mean, that's the upside we're talking about with Chase, is that we're like, oh yeah, he would have been the much better prospect at the same age.
Getting smarter by the second, talking with Joe Goodberry. Happy to have him back on the program, and he is joining us courtesy of our show sponsor. That would be Simbull, SIMBULL. It is the stock market for sports where you can trade sports teams like stocks, earn cash when your teams win. There is a website that you can see. We'll share that in all the live chat options as well, but you get a $10 deposit bonus when you sign up using the promo code OBI. John, you want to tell them a little bit more about Simbull, our partner of the program?
Yeah, so I actually just checked today on the website to see what the price was. So when we partnered with Simbull about a month ago, as you can see on the screen, the price was about $25 a share. That price is now up to about $45 a share, which I believe is within the top 3 of all NFL teams. But just like Anthony said, it's literally a stock market for sports. You just browse a list of all teams. They have a Simbull price attached to them. You guys know which teams are good, which teams are bad, which teams are going to get better. Why not use that knowledge and make money off of it? Simbull gives you that way to earn money off that knowledge without the high fees and high losses of gambling. And like Anthony said, visit simbull.app. That's simbull.app/OBI to sign up, get your $10 deposit bonus.
Joe, are you familiar with Simbull? Have you checked that out?
No, but that sounds fun. I'm just listening to that. I'm like, what? Stock market for teams?
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, cool. Well, let's get to the mock draft, right? I'm gonna share the screen here. I think we're doing. Is it Pro Football Network we're doing, John?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay. You have the controls, good sir. And we're gonna do. How many rounds we doing? We doing 7? We doing? I think
we might as well do 7.
Okay.
We might as well. Let's just get into it.
All right.
So this is pretty, I guess, predictable. You have Mac at 3 and then Pitts at 4, and I mean, we know what this is going to be, right? So we're just gonna take Chase.
Okay. Jamar Chase is the pick at number 5 based on everything we've been seeing, hearing, and what we believe in terms of the prospect himself. Slater going 8. Sewell going 11. Sorry, go ahead, Joe.
Are we being predictive with this one? Should we use all of our information on what the Bengals like and maybe what we have heard while we do
Not only should we be predictive, but we should throw a wild card in there because that's what always happens.
That's what will happen. Right.
Yeah.
Yep. We should pick some bad players that we're like, all right, next round.
We also got some trade-offs.
It's the scenario, right?
I mean, they would absolutely consider this. Like, that's a 4th-round pick to drop down three picks. They wouldn't consider trading all the way back to the end of the 2nd round. All right, so let's just see.
Let's check the board.
Yeah, so obviously we would look to here first. Again, like we mentioned, Reduns, we mentioned Eichenberg. Jalen Mayfield's an interesting one. I feel like he doesn't necessarily fit, but he's also just still 20, and he's just a mauler when he gets on. What are your thoughts on him, Joe?
Yeah, I feel the same way. He is nasty, and he's a guard, in my opinion, that could potentially play tackle. But for me, I'd put him at guard. And like you said, when you get a young guy like that, they're not going to test well. They normally don't. That's how you get Tyler Boyd that outplays his performance. T. Higgins will outplay his testing. Even Auden Tate will outplay their testing. You want to draft young guys, but the value to me would be at 69 for Mayfield. I think that's where he ends up going, closer to that.
Right.
Before we make this pick, Joe, the other name that's sitting there right below him is Spencer Brown. He is a guy who tested extremely well. Do you want to talk about him a little bit and your thoughts on him, where he may or may not fit, where he may or may not go between? I mean, you see he's number 75 here. I don't know. What do you make of him?
I mean, when you get a guy that size, that freak, athletic, and he ends up at Northern Iowa, you kind of wonder. But if teams are going to do their homework, I guess. So I don't be surprised if he went in round 2, but don't be surprised if he's there in the 4th or 5th. We see these guys every once in a while, and they go one of 2 ways. Either they get drafted high because teams think he's going to be the next Terran Armstead, or they don't get drafted, and it can end up being a Jason Peters that doesn't get drafted. So I don't know. If they do it, I'll feel like they feel confident in that, and I would be really excited about his upside.
Right. And let's also take a look at the guards here. Wyatt Davis, he could honestly go anywhere between the second. I think Matt Miller said he's a potential day 3 guy at this point because he didn't test. He's injured. Trey Smith tested really well. He's probably day 2 or early 3rd round. Ben Cleveland again. But I feel like if there's Redunds and Eichenberg there, along with
this is the trade back.
Yeah, I feel like we got to take advantage of this one.
Let them come up and get Jason. No way.
Yeah. You guys good with this?
Yeah, I am. If you guys are.
Yeah.
They trade up for Levi. I still don't know how to say his last name. The defensive tackle. There we go. And then we went to the Broncos pick right before the Bengals. So now we have a couple more trade-off options. Not trading back all the way to the 3rd. Might be. Yeah. I mean, I feel like if I'm predicting what they do here, I think it's between these 2 guys, Eichenberg and Redunds. Just 2 guys that I think overall that they see him as a guard year 1. I think with Redunds, I'm more confident that they see him as a tackle long term than Eichenberg. I know that Lap mentioned that Eichenberg would probably stay at guard. So I feel like it's weird because like it makes sense that they see guard as this gaping weakness right now, and they would have no problem taking one in round 2, but also they know the tackle's a need, and I feel like they would probably prefer to address that in round 2 rather than round 3.
Yeah, Eichenberg with 32.38 inch arms. I mean, that is small. He would probably be one of, if not the smallest arms for tackle in the league. So I think they would view him as a guard, whereas they would see Radins as, okay, we have to play him at guard because we're bringing him up from North Dakota State, but he can eventually kick out the tackle. And I think that's where they would lean.
Yeah. What do you think, Anthony?
I mean, I like what I've seen from Eichenberg. That's where I would personally go, but I think I agree with both of you guys in terms of a little bit more upside from a tackle perspective with Redunds over Eichenberg. Those short arms worry me with Eichenberg, and especially when you've got Jonah Williams, who has kind of a little bit shorter arms as well. You're talking about 2 tackles linch pinning the line that both have, short arms. That's not ideal. So I'll agree with you. I do like Eichenberg, but I think Redunds makes a little bit more sense longer term.
All right, so we're gonna make him the pick then.
Okay.
I think so far this makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
And then Davis and Miners go right after.
I didn't see Elijah Morris still on the board. That's not gonna happen.
Oh well.
Do you think he goes end of first, like Baltimore or something like that? Is that kind of where you guys are feeling he goes?
There was Milton Williams, so I don't want to play anymore.
Dickerson just goes to the Rams. So they're not going to trade back to Baltimore. No, screw that. So Eichenberg's still there now. He's probably, if not, he's the 4th best available player for this board. Ronnie Perkins, there's McNeil.
This is how they ended up taking Jake Fisher that one year. They were like, well, we like a boy more. We'll go with him. And then you come back and you're like, he's still there. We got to take Fisher. And that we shouldn't use that example right now. I know that's like, bad juju, but I can see them sitting here and saying, man, Eichenberg or Peyton Turner, what do we do? What do we do now?
Like the double down makes sense because for a fact that they have Eichenberg graded like higher than this. It's just the dynamic. Like if we pass on Turner, then you're taking maybe like a Patrick Jones in round 4, or you're just waiting for Odeyingbo to get healthy. You're either punting on that position group, or you're just solidifying the offensive line. Obviously, you get more fan support if you just take the Eichenberg and just put him at guard for his career. I don't know, man. This is tough.
Yeah, and the Bengals have shown interest in pre-draft interest in Turner, right? Wasn't there an interview?
They ran his drills at his pro day.
Yeah, that's what it was. Yeah.
Because look at, there may still be really good offensive linemen in round 4. Just by the way, it's falling out still. Yeah, so Mayfield's still there. Ben Cleveland,
Kendrick Green, Deontay Brown, Aaron Banks, who was also someone that Lap mentioned. I feel like, so you have, Jackson Carman, Christensen, they would consider him around 4 probably. Walker Little would be like the wild card here. I feel like they could just easily have him graded even higher than Eichenberg, just as a true tackle.
Yep.
Like honestly, like I feel like Little is in the conversation now with Turner and Eichenberg.
Yeah, I just think you can come back in the fourth, and they've got 2 fourth-round picks now with the trade back. And I mean, if you end up with Jackson Carman, are you mad?
No.
Right.
Bring him home to Cincy.
But then go to defensive end, and you're going to be like, man, I wish we would have potentially taken Peyton. I like Peyton Turner much more than Ronnie Perkins now that Perkins' profile is complete and his production and testing wasn't great.
Mm-hmm. And I don't even know if they're operating under the belief that Turner's going if he's going to get here. So I feel like that might just be what makes the decision for them.
Right. I could see them have grading Turner just as high as Eichenberg as a guy that's like 40 on their board.
Right.
What do you guys want to do?
It kind of seems like where it should go then.
Yeah, I think given the depth that are maybe in the other offensive line positions and the fact that the edge class is a little bit of a mixed bag, and that's a guy is still on the board in the third round that they seem to be interested in. That seems to be a sensible pick to me personally.
All right, we're gonna turn the card in for Peyton Turner.
Yeah, we talked about how many snaps are there. Would Eichenberg play right away, or would he play over Radins? I think Peyton Turner would play, and he'd play a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. And Eichenberg went, I think, a couple picks after. Looked like.
Yep. There's Deontay Brown.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Mayfield goes to the Steelers.
Great.
Walker Little goes back to LA.
Here's all these guys. Oh my gosh.
Yep.
Oh no.
Ben Cleveland. We screwed ourselves.
Oh man. Oh man.
This is how it goes.
Yeah, I mean, so there's no like real true best player available now. Like people like Trey Sermon, they like Stone Forsythe, who honestly could go anywhere. I'm like, there's apparently a late surge with him, but Aaron Banks is still there. Hainsey as well. David Moore from Grambling, Senior Bowl guy. Tommy Doyle, I think.
Okay, so this wasn't so bad. Stone Forsythe in the fourth round makes a lot of sense. I think all three of those guards make a lot of sense too. And you're not forced to play them this year if Radins is going to be your right guard for the year. I think they're in a good shape here with O-line.
Anthony, what do you think?
Yeah. What are some of the just for giggles and stuff? Can you show me what's available at wideout and tight end here? Is there anybody of note that?
So you got Darden, you got Amir Smith, Marset, who I believe they're interested in early in the process.
Mm-hmm.
Anthony Schwartz, I think they saw him down there. Shai Smith, honestly, is like a taller Hawkins kind of.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, so yeah, there's depth there to go back in round 5, and lest we forget, we have a pick right after this, so we can
right.
We got 2 picks.
Yeah, we don't really have to make a crucial decision here, right here.
So let's take one receiver. What's that there at defensive tackle? Since we've already addressed the end, maybe we can get one O-line, one D-line right here.
Oh, I know. Joe wants to take Marvin Wilson.
No, not at all. I'm glad to see him at 169 though. That's great. I mean, that's pretty fair and accurate. This is a good. Tyler Shelvin should be dropped down.
I was wondering where you were. What do you think of Odigizua, the defensive tackle out of UCLA?
I'm at least interested. I do think he is a bit of a tweener, and we haven't really used that word in the draft world for a long time because you kind of find a spot for those guys lately. But he looks like a tweener. I do think he can give you some interior rush. I think he's more of a DN that kicks inside rather than a full-time 3-tech, unless he gains a little bit of weight and gets a little stronger. But he could be that. And we're in the fourth round. You take these guys that maybe are missing one trait.
Yeah.
So if we want to go receiver here, we want to wait and see what lineman drops in the 5th in order to double down there, take a receiver and maybe a defensive tackle here.
I like the guards that are here. If you want to go back to them, I think Banks, Moore, or Hainsey are good developmental guards. I mean, the only thing I don't like about Banks is that he'll be 24 on draft day, where I think Moore's got like high upside. But do we want to take a North Dakota State and a Grambling State to fix our offensive line? Or do you want to get a Robert Hainsey, who those Notre Dame guys, man, they come out pro ready lately. And he may be a guy that's, is a little bit younger and maybe he comes in and can play if you need him to.
I believe Hainsey played center a lot at the Senior Bowl and impressed there,
Mhm.
and I think PFF has that as like his position going forward. And I think Hainsey's like more athletic too, which could intrigue them for what they want to do compared to Banks.
Okay.
Yep, I'm pulling up my grades here to see where I'm at and on who I liked more. Yeah, I had Banks higher without factoring in age, but yeah, it's pretty close. It's up to you guys. What do you want to do?
So is there any DTs that like that you want to like just get now and not like worry about?
I really like Bobby Brown. I really like Odigizua for here. We're talking fourth round. I didn't like him as much as the third, but now in the fourth round, like Brown, Odigizua, I think Marshall in the next round. And then after that, it gets a little weird. Go to edge. I wonder if Deo is still there as a.
Yeah, he's still there.
I think he's more of a D tackle. You know, I think he's a guy that kicks inside, but that's probably next round if he's ranked 130.
Mm-hmm. How about we just go. We just take care of the offense line right now. We'll just pick one of these guards. We'll pick between Banks
tackle
and
though. Are there more tackles that could kick inside?
Yeah, I mean you're not gonna kick Forsyth inside. He's 6'8". And Tommy Doyle.
No, that's maybe.
Oof. Easy guy.
Yeah. I think he'd actually make a good guard.
Yeah,
because he's 6'4" or something, and I think his length is below. I'm going to click on him right now.
He's crazy. He's crazy athletic too.
Yep. Yeah, Hudson is 6'4", 302 with 33-inch arms. Yeah, I mean this again. I like a lot of these guys that are sitting here. So if you guys have someone you like,
the clock is running down. Like I feel like at this point we're almost forfeiting the pick. So let's go. Let's just go Hudson. Let's go Hudson.
Okay. Let's go.
All right. Fine.
Now we're back on the clock.
If it was me, I'd probably go Bobby Brown.
Okay.
Yeah.
If you guys have any objections or anyone else you want.
No. That's a good one.
Ben Davies.
I've got Bobby Brown as the fourth highest defensive tackle in this class. 6'4", 321, almost 35-inch arms. His production score was in the 78th percentile. His testing was in the 98th percentile.
And
in terms of pass rush win rate, PFF had him number 4 or 5, if I'm missing 5, amongst interior defensive linemen.
And this is what they would want to do. Like they get an extra pick, and they don't have to wait and see which guys fall on these positions. Now they address 2 offensive linemen, receiver, 2 defensive linemen before round 5. Pretty good.
Yep. And this is ideal, right? I mean, I think you get the shiny toy, as they want to call it, with Jamar Chase, but then you load up on the trenches. We got 2 offensive linemen, 2 defensive linemen. I mean, these are the weaknesses on the team.
Now you can enter the conversation of getting another receiver, maybe taking a running back. Khalil Herbert just went off the board. Shi Smith just went off the board. Aaron Banks.
Sean Wade.
Listed as safety. All right, so we got Marshall at the top of the board. For kicks and giggles, I feel like I don't know if they would be interested in like these running backs. I feel like a lot of these guys have like a lot of tread on the tires, and maybe they want to take a guy who's like more fresh. I know for a fact that they were interested in Chris Evans, but yeah, it feels like this is just a little too early unless there is a Trey Sermon or a Khalil Herbert right there.
Go back to receiver. That's it, huh?
Yeah.
I was hoping for a Shi Smith at the very. Anthony Schwartz just went. I see him on the left.
Right.
Jalen Darden too. That's what happened. Schwartz, I think, is going to outplay his draft position if we're talking 5th round.
Can also look at tight end as well. I know I've seen McKitty a couple times. This might be just too early for him. Kicker?
Is there a corner?
DJ Daniels a name, but I don't know much about him. Shakur Brown, Trey Brown, who's more of a slot guy. I think Avery Williamson is like the consensus second best returner in this class behind Jalen Waddle.
Interesting.
So that might be a guy in the 6th round. I don't know. Like this feels like there's not like a guy that's like standing out, and they've already adjusted all those positions. So
I think you could always take another edge. You could always take another offensive lineman. Drake Jackson. Some local fans would probably be very excited for something like that. I think Cam Sample's got a lot of upside.
Actually, yeah, I was thinking about like just going through it today. Like, what other positions could they double down? I feel like edge is the other position, and a guy that they really liked is Janarius Robinson. I was
gonna say he looks like Dunlap a lot, but you kind of got to light the fire under him half the time. When it's on, man. And I think that's why he's there in round 5. We've talked about edge class being kind of a weird class where it kind of dies off in round 2. And maybe you get a Peyton Turner at the top of round 3. But, it seems like there's a lot of guys that like to roll the dice on day 3 late. And I think just looking here with Cam Sample, Shaka Toney, Janarius Robinson, Josh Caindale, there's quite a few guys that I would consider.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like Robinson here, this might be too early for some people, but I feel like for the Bengals, this would be a pick that they would make. Yeah. We'll go ahead and do it.
So this
bunch of D linemen.
Do we start looking at kickers, running backs? What are we looking at here?
Yeah, I think most people would want to wait till the 7th round for a kicker, but then it's every couple of years there's just one that just pops up at like the 6th or even the 5th round. I think there was a Tony Tony Pauline piece on The Athletic, so like someone could take McPherson like the 4th round or something like that, which would be a bit crazy, but that's just kind of how it goes sometimes.
I'd rather be the team that get the kicker you want in this scenario because the Bengals can't go into less than Seibert again, right? So go get your kicker now. You've got 2 more picks left in this draft, right? And so we'll get some backup guys with maybe some potential at the end.
It's weird because I was expecting one of these guys like Patterson, McPherson, or Borgales to be like more accurate than the other, but none really like kind of stand out, which makes sense because it's college kickers, but still.
What do we want? Flip a coin?
You did mention McPherson. I feel like that does make sense. So I'm good with that if you guys are.
I was told by someone that works at Florida that Darren Simmons spent a lot of time with him working through stuff. And so it just seems like that would happen.
Okay. That's good enough for me. Hainsey just
There's our kicker, guys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's not cut him next time.
Oh, gosh. No
bitterness there. So now,
Frank Darby could be fun. Javian Hawkins.
Oh, yeah.
Jimmy Morrissey. I think he can end up being a starting center.
They don't really have to go anywhere here. Like you'd think after losing 3 receivers, they would consider taking 2, and now they have 2 more picks. I don't know a lot about these other receivers though. Like I know a little bit about some of the running backs. I know people love Hawkins. He was fast. There's Chris Evans again, who's I think in the 260s. Also, Joe Burrow's former roommate, Justin Hilliard, St. X guy.
Oh, really? Okay. If they do that, then they are listening full on to Joe Burrow.
Right. I think he was in the Daner's mock too. But it's weird, because they didn't bring back Bynes. They have 5 linebackers that are probably going to make the roster, and you kind of wonder, are they even interested in adding to that beyond just an undrafted guy?
I know, you do wonder. But this is basically undrafted territory anyways.
Right.
So this is just guys you want to make sure you get rather than, put them out there to bid.
I could see Hilliard just as he was a captain again, UC or Cincinnati guy. Just the guy knows Burrow just to round out the position group here. But
fine with me.
All right.
Yep. Leave us one more pick. Maybe we can get another receiver. Maybe we get a corner. Maybe we get a tight end. Maybe you get one more offensive lineman or running back.
Yeah, we didn't do that yet.
Can't fill everything, huh?
So they say. Avery Williams. I don't know any of these people. What was that tight end from BYU? Like Chapman, I think. People were like raging about him.
Click on it. We might be able to see it. Yeah, he dominated when he was like 19 years old, and then Bushman. And then he got injured the last 2 years. And then I believe he tested well, or he didn't test. I can't remember which one was which, but yeah, he at like 19, he was like all of their passing offense.
So that could be an option. I think Noah Gray. I think his data is really good. He's like right behind Pitts in terms of the market share and the density based athleticism data. I do wonder, like at this point they probably do take a running back just because they just seem kind of set on it. That's been like what the athletic guys
Jay Finley, Baylor. No one remembers that.
I remember Jay Finley. Yeah,
like, is he in this class? Like, no, he was drafted like 10 years ago.
Did nothing.
He was like ranked 350 on a board, and like the only board I even knew that had him on there, and they took him in the 7th. I'm like, why? What is this? And he was cut like the first week of camp.
Yep.
We rake on tape, but he's by far the best 7th rounder they've had in a while, I guess, aside from Fedulum.
Yeah.
So they've been connected to Evans, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's been some kind of
go ahead then.
There.
Yeah.
They can use more athleticism on that back half.
Yeah. Round it out with Evans. We'll round it out with the Avenger.
Captain America.
What do you think about the Falcon Winter Soldier?
I thought it was cool. I had read the comic that closely follows where old Captain America is out of service and Falcon takes over as, not exactly Captain America, but as I'm going to take the role. And I thought they did a good job of playing on the right strings that really make it interesting. So overall, I liked it.
Well, guys, this is our mock in all its glory. We got Chase at 1, Dylan Redunds in round 2, Peyton Turner, the edge at Houston round 3, James Hudson, Cincinnati offensive lineman round 4, Bobby Brown, the extra 4th round pick right after him, the defensive tackle at Texas A&M, Janarius Robinson, the edge at Florida State, Evan McPherson, kicker out of Florida, Justin Hilliard, Joe Burrow's best friend from Ohio State, and Chris Evans, running back from Michigan. I feel like this would
grade us in the chat.
What are they? I got to look here. What are they saying in the chat? I had full screen going. So, since you all drafted James Hudson, A+ fellas, I like that one. That's a good one.
I still have beef with Hudson for what he did in the Peach Bowl, but I'll get over that.
Well, I think that's realistic. I think it's a solid class, and I believe, I do think that there's going to be a trade in there somewhere for him. I think they want to get another pick somewhere. And because there are a lot of just deficient areas on the roster and they need to add some depth for sure. So
might be the worst mock I've ever saw. Thanks, Josh Cook.
Okay. Thanks, Josh. So at any rate, that's what we came up with, and like it or love it, leave it, whatever. That's what we got. And it was a tag team by myself, John Sheeran, and Joe Goodberry. Joe, if any parting thoughts? We've gone a little long because of the mock here, but first of all, it's been great having you back on the show, man. We got to make it a regular thing. I know you're going to take a little hiatus after the draft, but hopefully we can have you back on and go over some of these players that have been drafted and talk about your analysis of them. But any parting thoughts, any predictions, bold predictions, anything like that you want to leave us with as we head into draft weekend?
I wish they were picking in the 20s because then we could have a little bit more fun and say, well, if this happens, remember those days, guys? Those were fun. Or I guess maybe now the last one I remember is getting our heart broken from Frank Ragnow and Billy Price. That one's scorched into my brain. But so it seems like Jamar Chase. I hope it's Jamar Chase so we don't have to think about all the other alternate realities and scenarios because it seems like that's their guy. I don't want to do what I just did about Ragnow and Price for the next 5 years. So let's hope for Jamar Chase and let's have a good time and then reset the board in the day 2. And there's always better players there than you expected in every single round. Let's just hope they get them this time. Let's hope it's that year where it's 2012, where they kept taking the consensus top guy on the board, right, with all those picks. Let's get one of those years again.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's been awesome having you back on the show, Joe. It's been too long, as I've said, and this has been a lot of fun going through a mock draft with you. I haven't done that with you on one of these shows, so a lot of fun. Enjoy draft week. What are you going to be doing? Are you going to be plopped down on the sofa? Are you doing anything fun? What are you doing for the weekend?
I will be getting on with Jake Lisco streaming a little bit. I've got a buddy coming over too, so I'm going to get drunk. I'm going to watch. I'm going to hang out, and I'm going to probably try and ruin Jake's stream.
Jake's trying to ruin our stream. He's talking about how the Miami Dolphins are going to trade up to 4 for some reason in the chat.
Right now he's doing that?
Yeah.
Don't do that, Jake. What are you doing?
Yeah, there's Jake. What's going on, Jake? Good to see you, bud. We got to get him on the show too. I don't know if we've ever had him on. We got to get him on here. But hey, Joe, take care, man. Thanks for everything. Thanks for coming on here. Thanks for the hats. People go follow. It's going to be on your Twitter account where they can get these hats because we've had a lot of requests for them. Okay.
Yeah.
If you guys don't follow Joe Goodberry, definitely follow him. If you don't follow him.
Well, you don't. You think there's a lot of people that do not follow me, right? So good joke.
I don't know any person that knows of the Bengals that does not follow Joe Goodberry. So go follow him if for some reason you do not. This has been the Orange and Black Insider Bengals podcast. Our thanks to Joe Goodberry. Our thanks to our sponsor Symbol. Our thanks to all of you for tuning in live for this fun draft eve episode of the show. Have fun this weekend. We'll be talking to you more on this show, on the Cincy Jungle podcast channel, and all of the news, opinions, analysis of every pick is going to be available on cincyjungle.com. Keep it there. For John Sheeran, I'm Anthony Cosenza. Thanks again to Joe Goodberry. We'll see you next time.